Hi, I'm Ronan and I have more than 1000 hours in V-Rising at this point, all of it PvP. I have won money in PvP tournaments in this game. I was a part of the Gloomrod beta for about a month before the official release. I know a lot about PvP in this game, and that is why I feel confident sharing my views on what spell duel effects are the best. Okay, so today I'm going to go through how spell duels work and what spell duels I think are the best for each and every spell, which is not always clear, and there's definitely a lot of combinations of effects that haven't really been tested or discovered yet, so the meta hasn't fully developed. So this, what I'm looking at here, this is a V-Rising Duel spreadsheet made by Vinn, a Dojo admin. Link for this will be in the description. I'd recommend looking it up. It's extremely good. I love it. So here's some here's some information about how duels work for anyone confused by that. I'm gonna skip through that. Here's a table of all debuffs and some buffs that you can get for different effects. Noticeably, I see that this doesn't reflect like stealth and camouflage, which is different. Slasher E now just camouflages, doesn't stealth anymore. Though there is possible ways to get invisibility. For Blood Rite here, turn invisible. That's the one way to get truly invisible in the game at this point. So those effects aren't listed here. Shouldn't matter too much. Right, let's get into it. First with the Blood School. Blood Fountain used to be called Purgatory. Haven't seen this used at all, actually. Recasting a Huron AoE that does damage and heals ally just a little bit. All these recast AoEs, they're always super tiny, so it's very difficult to heal, so I'd say like limited value on that. Hit applies Lich. It's not super good. Hit applies Snare. Yeah, that's pretty good, because this is almost an instant snare on an enemy. That's pretty good. Hit removes negative effects from caster and allies. This effects are always good, and this is hit, because this spell, both has a hit effect and then an explosion effect, and the hit is almost instant, so this is an almost instant remove negative effects ability, which is always useful. Explosion pushes enemies back, and this is the explosion. I wouldn't really care about that much. Explosion increases ally movement speed. That's so little for a short time, I wouldn't care. Explosion consumes Lich to deal damage. So here we can see hit applies Lich and then explosion consumes Lich. So if you combine those, you would get quite a bit of damage. Increase hit healing. It's pretty good. Just instantly 25% spell power healing. That's pretty good. Increase explosion damage. That's not a lot. The healing here definitely wins out, because this is on hit and this is on explosion. Increase explosion healing. If you combine hit healing and explosion healing, I think you have a pretty good healing spell here. And then maybe, yeah, since you're using it as a heal, you wouldn't care about snare and you wouldn't care about Lich, so you then either the recast, which is again pretty bad. I wouldn't take that. I would instead take the remove negative effect. If you have a frozen ally, you can just unfreeze them and then heal them for a lot of health. So it's pretty good. Blood Rage, another spell that's in some use, since definitely in team fights it's pretty good, because you can have a shield for whole team. Kill an enemy to heal. PvE, don't take that PvP. Cast removes all negative effects from caster and allies. Definitely valuable. Definitely a good choice. Cast grants shield to caster and allies. Always have this. Always. It's super strong. Cast applies Fading Snare. I can see this being useful if you use it more aggressively, but I wouldn't. Increase physical power 10 to 20%. This is really good. I'm not sure if this applies to only the caster or all allies, but either way, physical power this much, that's a lot of damage. Increase effect duration. This is always good on shields, so I would go for that. Movement speed. It's not a lot of movement speed increase here, so I would go effect duration, physical power, and shield, I think, for a really strong supportive and spell. Also, you can just, I say supportive, but you can cast this on yourself and then go in and whack them with auto attacks for a lot of damage while not really taking damage. Blood Rite, another really good spell. Turn invisible while immaterial. This, again, the only true invisibility in the game. It scares people because they think this is slashery. Whenever they use this, they will immediately counter. I do this too all the time. Super annoying. So you can bait out counters super easily with just holding this. You can also cast spells while invisible, and they won't see the animation, which is really, really scary. So you could come out of this into slashery. You could come out into Greatsword Q, whatever. Really strong. Take this duel for sure. Trigger consumes Lich to heal a bit of max HP per target. Seems mostly PvE, because you have to apply Lich, which is not super easy, and then you consume it to heal per target, which nah, I wouldn't. Trigger consumes Lich to decrease spell cooldown. Same thing, more PvE, not very good. Trigger applies a Fading Snare. Snares are good, but this thing already knocks you back, and it's a short snare, so I wouldn't really bother. Trigger for first primary attack within 5 seconds to deal bonus damage. Yeah, that's good. more damage. That's a lot of damage as well. Increased movement speed during channel, always good with this. Increased immaterial duration, and of course invisible duration, because you have this rune. Very good in combination. And then increased damage. I do this increased damage or trigger for first hit. Those are both very good. So I think the meta right now is to go invisible, then go invisible for longer, and then take either of these two damage effects. Though I'm pretty sure you could just combine both the damage effects and then turning invisible to have a strong spell as well. I'm gonna try that actually myself. Sanguine Coil, yet another very strong spell. Extremely powerful as a supportive spell, but also completely viable as a 1v1 spell. Lethal attacks restore 1 charge. Just, nope, PvE, that's PvE, we don't care. It consumes Lich to deal damage. Actually pretty good, because Sanguine Coil has 3 charges, so you can apply Lich and then consume Lich and deal more damage. And then hit consumes Lich to heal, same as the above. Pretty good, because it's easy to proc. So it's more like up to, do I want more healing or do I want to deal more damage? And here we have the best one for this. You have to have this effect if you're going Sanguine Coil. Hit bounces projectile to an additional target or the caster to deal damage or heal, 35 to 60%. So if you do this in a 1v1, you target the enemy, and then it bounces back to you and heals you for 60%. That's a lot of healing, so definitely take that effect. Increase charges by 1. Doesn't seem all that good because you have 3 charges already. That's a lot of charges. Increase damage 9 to 15%. That's not too bad. The hit consume Lich is probably better. And then increase healing. That's a lot of healing percentage. If you're going for a supportive version, then definitely take this. I'd say this just wins over the increased damage here because it's a higher percentage. Increase projectile range and speed, which especially with the bounces is notably quite good because after the bounce it's gonna be a bit hard for that to hit, but if it goes faster, it's pretty good. So definitely take the more bounce, and if you want healing, you can go for the healing, the projectile range and speed. Yeah, take some more heal. Or if you want more damage, then you can take both consume Lich, deal damage, and this damage spell, or projectile range and speed. There's a lot of options, but definitely take the bounce. Shadowbolt, kind of underrated right now. It does a lot of damage. Like a lot of damage, definitely the highest damaging spell in the game right now. Hit consumes Lich to deal damage. That is a lot of damage. If you have some Lich application in your kit, that's good. Then I can see this being useful. But otherwise, if you can't apply Lich reliably, then don't take that. Hit consumes Lich to heal. It loses out to the damage on this one. That's not a lot. You could just take Coil for a much better heal. It conjures an AoE, deals damage, and applies Lich. So this is very good because this AoE actually applies to the target being hit. So they will just take more damage. This makes this really strong. Hit force into 2 projectiles to deal damage, 55 to 80%, and apply Lich. Sounds good, but they hit almost nothing and they don't apply to the primary target, so it doesn't matter. Hit pushes enemies back. Doesn't really matter. Wouldn't take that. Increase projectile range and speed, always good. Decrease cooldown, always good. Decrease cast time, always good. Definitely good. I would take that one. So definitely the AoE for sure, and then cast time, and I think projectile range and speed or cooldown. But the one you absolutely have to have is this AoE one, and then I think cast time is the best of these 3. But just take whatever you manage to roll. Veil of Blood, now actually a very strong dash. Dashing through an enemy applies Lich. This is good because applying Lich, again, if you have some way to apply Lich, then other consuming Lich effects are much better. Next primary attack within 3 seconds can use an AoE that deals damage and applies Lich. Again, I think this AoE probably applies to the primary target, but it's not a lot of damage, and this is a better Lich application. Next primary attack within 3 seconds consumes Lich to increase physical power by 17 to 30% for 4 seconds. That is a big percentage. And if you have this dual effect, you dash through them to apply Lich, and then you consume it for a 4-second 30% physical damage buff. Yeah, that's very strong. Next primary attack within 3 seconds, apply the Fading Snare. It's pretty good as well. You can combine this snare with physical damage buff, and suddenly they can't move, and you do 30% more physical damage, and they will be in a world of pain. Increase elude duration. This is a really bad effect because it doesn't do anything for PvP. This only affects mob aggro, and we don't care about mob aggro much in PvP. You can reset it, and it's very good to reset mob aggro, so that mobs don't target you. But once you reset it, then it's done. You don't want them to target the clone, you want them to target your enemy. So this is bad. Increase damage, 12 to 25% next primary attack within 3 seconds. Yep, always good. Increase healing, always good. These two are just You can take whatever you think feels better there. So definitely a dash through to apply Lich, and then consume for physical power. Take those always. And I think I would take the Snare, but you could either go for the damage or healing as well. Doesn't matter as much as these two effects that are very strong. Aftershock, still a bad spell, unfortunately. Just wouldn't ever use this one, just ever. It's not good. Cast knocks enemies back. That's so they don't get hit by the AoE, the explosion, which is delayed. That's that's really bad. Cast applies a fading snare. If you'd really want to use this spell, go ahead. Use this jewel. Explosion consumes ignite to conjure an AoE that deals damage, 23 to 40%. Worth noting here is that just letting the ignite tick would do more damage than this, so this is really bad. Explosion consumes ignite to increase movement speed for like 7 to 10% for 5 seconds with 2 stacks max. Again, like the ignite does up to 50% damage over 5 seconds. That's much better than a tiny bit of movement speed. So these two effects, this consume effects for ignite, are always, they are bad. Just don't take them on any spells pretty much. Increased damage 12 to 25%. That's a pretty big percentage. I'd go this if you take the spell, which you shouldn't. Increased projectile range 14 to 25%. I mean, sure, but you're never gonna land it that far out. It's really small AoE. Decreased cooldown. Yeah, I'd go this as a third. So if you want, for whatever reason, to go this spell, go for the snare, and go for the damage, and go for the cooldown reduction. But don't go this spell. Chaos Barrier. Really strong spell. A recast launches 3 projectiles instead of 1 that deal 90 to 25% apply damage, and of course these projectiles all pull the enemy in, which is quite strong. So this, especially in team fights, can be pretty strong. It's pretty good. Barrier hit, and this is only melee, it doesn't say here, but this is only applies on melee hits. Stuns the attacker for 0.8 to 1.2 seconds, and that is extremely strong. You can, yeah, stun. It's a stun. Stuns are always good. You can chain this into Spear Key. You can even, if you get a max roll, chain it, and if you're fast, you can chain it into Reaper and Spear Key, which is the highest damage combo you can do, like in the entire game. So this is a must-have jewel for this one. Projectile hit consumes ignite. Again, bad. Don't want to consume your ignite. Projectile hit forks into 2 projectiles that deal damage and apply ignite. So this, instead of getting 1 hit, like getting 1 projectile from when they hit your barrier, you get 2, and yeah, that's about it. It's not too bad. Probably wouldn't take it. Increased damage 10 to 20%. Yeah, I take that over this one, but the main damage source of your Chaos Barrier is going to be the ignite anyway, so I don't know about this. Increased movement speed 7 to 12% during channel. It's not bad, but it's not great. Increased pull distance 45 to 70%. I like this. It's fun. You can pull them in further, but it does not apply on the recast. Only on the projectile you get when they hit your barrier. For some reason, I can't explain that one. Decreased cooldown 0.5 to 0.8 seconds on absorbed hit. Doesn't sound like that much, but any cooldown reduction on a defensive spell like a counter or a barrier is like, the more you have, the better it is, and that makes this really good. Even if you just get it to proc once, it's almost 10% cooldown reduction. So I would take hit apply stun, and then decrease cooldown, and then maybe the recast for 3 projectiles, maybe even the damage. I see a lot of people like the 3 projectiles because it's easy to land. Means it's also easy to predict with your counter, on their counter, however. Chaos Volley, another good spell. Doesn't really synergize with anything, but it's good. It consumes ignite. No, we don't want those effects. That's bad. Hit pushes enemies back a tiny bit. I don't see what you'd go this. Hitting a different enemy with a section projectile deals damage 29 to 50%. This one is very good because that's, as you can see, that's a lot of percentage. That's a high percentage. That does a lot of damage. But what's also interesting is, if you hit the air, the first one, that is to say, you completely whiff the first one, you miss everything, and then the second projectile hits an enemy, that enemy will take this increased damage. So that makes it quite consistent, and that is a lot of damage. Definitely go this dual effect. Increased damage, 12 to 20%, slightly worse than the one above actually, but still good. I would take both of them. And then increased projectile range and speed, 10 to 24%, always good. Decreased cooldown, 7 to 12%. Always good as well. I would take both these damaging jewels, and then I think range and speed for me, but you could also go cooldown. Like, whatever you roll is what you should go with. Power Surge, another good spell that I haven't personally used all that much, but it's definitely good, especially in open world. And this first one is interesting. Recast to remove the effect and conjure an AoE that deals damage 45 to 70% and pulls enemies toward the target. That's pretty good, because this one, it will cancel counters and barriers, because it's a pull. And you can do that like on demand. It'll also cancel channels like Spear Key. Very good. Doesn't do that much damage yet, but yeah, I've seen some people say that this is pretty good. Removes all negative effects. This is, again, it's really good. You want to remove negative effects, that's really good. Apply a shield, 65 to 90%. Definitely take this one. Shields are very good. Definitely go for this. And this is PvE, we don't care. Increase attack speed. Yeah, it's pretty good. Increase movement speed. You already have 25% movement speed from the spell. I don't see why you need more. Increase effect duration, 17 to 30%. This is always good to combine with buffs, and especially shields, because often the shield gets times out before it can get hit, and this makes it much more likely to actually absorb damage and provide value. Increase physical power, 10 to 20%. It's very strong, especially with effect duration. So I would go shield, and then effect duration and physical power, but you can also experiment with remove negative conditions and the recast. And again, like, it matters more like what effect you actually roll, because getting all the 3 effects you want is very unlikely. Void, yet another really strong spell that I personally haven't really experimented with, not yet, but I've seen it used to great effect. It has amazing area denial. Again, consume ignite is bad, don't take that. Explosion can use free AoEs that explode to deal damage, 17 to 30%, and apply ignite. Again, it's a low damage roll, but ignite is a very strong debuff, so this is pretty good. It is even more area denial. And this one, you have to have this duel if you're running the spell. Explosion deals 9 in AoE to this damage, 9 to 15%. And also applies ignite, which, again, it's such a strong debuff. So this just completely denies an area for like the next 5 seconds, which is disgusting considering you have 2 charges in this spell. Increased damage, 10 to 20%. It's not bad. Increased range, 10 to 20%. Also not bad. Increase recharge rate, 10 to 20%, really, really strong. Any cooldown reduction, especially with like this high percentage, very good. So I would definitely go for this leave behind AoE and then recharge rate. And then after that, it doesn't matter so much. The more AoE, more damage, or more range, all are good. Because there's more damage. Again, ignite is so much damage, so much of your damage that this doesn't matter so much. So you can either go like this AoEs, it's still good though. You can either go this AoEs for more area denial, or you can have more range to, area denial at longer range. It's pretty good options here. Veil of Chaos, one of the best dashes in the game, for sure. Very strong. Got bad duels though. Recast can use a second illusion that deals damage in an AoE after 2.2 seconds. Yeah, sure, you can have more of that, because as you'll see, the rest of the effects are bad. Consume Ignite, still bad. Elude, still really bad. Increased explosion damage, you'd think it's bad, but the rest of the effects are so bad that you'll still be taking this one. And then there is an effect that has the explosion of the clone apply a snare as well. That is not in this spreadsheet. You want that effect, that's the best one. And then you have a second illusion for more snare and then a bit more damage, because what else would you take? But like, if you get a decent jewel for this, like, you can even run it without a jewel at all. It doesn't matter so much. The snare is the only thing that actually feels good to have on this one. So go with whatever you roll. Now it's time for the Frost School. First up is Crystal Lance, which is a really, really strong spell. Used a lot in the meta right now, because Ice Block is OP. Projectile pierces enemies 1 to 3, 1 to 3 max, dealing 50% reduced damage. This is really good. It allows you to pierce walls in sieges, actually. And of course in team fights you can freeze multiple targets, because it's still a 2-second freeze on all targets hit, which is really strong. Hit on an enemy affected by chill or freeze, launches 8 projectiles that deal damage, 17 to 30%, and applies chill. Not particularly good, but in a team fight, sure, I wouldn't mind. Increased damage, 35 to 60%, enemies affected by chill or freeze, really good. Always take this one. Every single time you roll Crystal Lance, you want this effect. Every time. It's so good. Increased freeze duration, 0.5 to 1.2 seconds, the enemies affected by chill. You have to remember that this duration is halved in PvP, so that's actually not a lot, and it's only affected when they're affected by chill, not freeze. So this is almost never gonna proc, and it won't do much, so I wouldn't take that. Increased projectile range and speed, 10 to 24%. This makes the spell have just insane range, so this is really good. Decreased cast time, 12 to 25%. Definitely take this, it's very good. The cast time is fairly long, but if you take this effect, yeah, there you go, it's very good. So for me, I would definitely go increased damage, and then I would go cast time, and then also projectile range and speed, ideally. Though the pierce is pretty good as well. So don't, like, if you don't stress about getting the perfect jewel, it's fine if you don't. Frost Barrier, pretty good spell. Most people use Ice Block instead, but this can definitely be used to great effect. Barrier hit decreases cooldown, again, very good, because barrier cooldown reduction, always very good. And then we have Recast consumes shield and applies freeze, This is an absolute must-have for Frost Barrier. You have to have this if you're running Frost Barrier. There's just no other option there. Recast pushes enemies back. I think this might cancel counters and barriers, which would make it have quite a bit of utility. But and freeze is just better, much better. Recast shields the caster when an enemy affected by a shield or freeze. But they are frozen. I don't care about I don't care about a shield when they are frozen. They can't hurt me anyway. So don't take that. That's bad. Increased damage 10 to 20%. So a little bit of damage. You can take that. Doesn't matter much. Increased spell power 5 to 10% for 6 seconds. Each time it blocks a projectile, that is. That's quite a bit of spell power potentially. So yeah, could be fun. Increased movement speed during shadow. Not bad. Not great. So definitely take chill and apply freeze. And then I would go the cooldown, I think. And then maybe either the damage or the spell power. It doesn't matter so much. Frostbat, I think this spell is actually quite underrated. I was fighting a guy yesterday. He was critting me for 100 with Frostbat, which on Frail Blood, no buffs. That's a lot of damage from Frostbat. Very quick spell. Hit on an enemy affected by chill or freeze. Launches 8 projectiles to deal damage, 17 to 30%, and apply chill. This is the same damage percentage as Crystal Lance, and obviously Bat is much easier to land. So if you want this effect, go Bat instead of Lance because you have multiple charges and it's much faster. Still probably not great. Hit an enemy affected by shield or freeze, shields the caster again. They are frozen, I don't care about the shield. Hit, conjures an AoE, deals this damage 27 to 40%. So here's something I haven't tested, but this one might apply the damage to the primary target as well, same as Shadowbolt. And if so, this would be very good. Increases damage 17 to 30% to enemies affected by chill or freeze. Very good. It's not that high a percentage, but again, like you can crit for 100, who cares? Increase projectile range and speed, always good. Decrease cast time, very good, because this spell has 0.6 seconds cast time, and if you reduce that 25%, it's very difficult to react to, and it becomes a very quick way to freeze someone at range. So I would go for this one for sure, and then I would probably also go projectile range and speed, and then I think the damage, but depending on how this AoE works, I would go that instead of the projectile range and speed. But cast time is the one that really matters. The rest is doesn't matter as much. Ice Block, top 2 spell. I don't know. I'm not sure if it's the best or the second best spell in the game, but it's extremely overpowered. And here's why. It will make you, of course, you should probably know it. It makes you completely immune to CC, anything. It includes Sword, it includes Merciless Charge. You cannot be CC'd. The shield is so big that it effectively can't be broken. It heals you 8% max HP. Just a lot of healing, and they can't do anything about it. And then if they attack you, they will be shielded, because you will always have this jewel. This jewel is really good. You combine that with this jewel, that when it's end, conjure a caster-centered AoE that applies chill or consumes chill to apply freeze for 2.3 to 4 seconds once the spell ends. These two are a must-have as a combination, because you can also cancel the spell with I think default with the same bind. You cancel spell channels with spell casts. So the default should be X. I've rebounded to a mouse button, much nicer. So first, when they attack you, they get chill. Then you immediately cancel your ice block and they get frozen, just immediately. And then they are frozen. You can combo this into a crystal lance for, as you can see, a lot of damage. And then you have increased shield here. It's not great because the shield's already so big, it's never breaking. Increased healing, not bad. But here's an interesting one. Next primary attack for 6 seconds after the spell ends deals damage 27 to 40% and inflicts chill. Doesn't seem that amazing at first, but then I'm gonna skip ahead here. Go to Veil of Frost. Next primary attack within 3 seconds consumes chill and applies freeze 2.3 to 4 seconds. So, if your next primary attack first applies chill and then consumes chill to apply freeze, yes, that means your next auto attack will instantaneously freeze the enemy, and there's nothing they can do about it. That is extremely nasty. So you can do that with Crystal Lance again, and massive damage. Definitely take for Ice Block, take this one, and this one. Chill and healing doesn't matter as much. These 3 are what you care about. And then combine that with Veil of Frost for sure. Ice Nova. Haven't seen this used at all, actually. It's not that good. Recast a coherent AoE that explodes to deal a little bit of damage and apply chill. Again, this recast AoE is super tiny, and it does not have a chilling wave like the normal Ice Nova has. Explosion consumes chill to apply freeze. Yeah, you want to be able to freeze with your frost spells. That's the entire point. Definitely take this one if you're gonna go Nova. Explosion shields caster and allies, but you're not aiming at caster or allies, you're aiming at the enemy, so don't take that. Increase range, it's not bad. Range is always nice. Increase damage 27 to 40% to enemies affected by chill or freeze. That's a pretty good percentage, so I'd probably take that. And then decrease cooldown, that's pretty good. So you could go like, definitely take the apply to freeze, of course. And then maybe range and cooldown could apply more freeze, or if you wanted to go damage, and then like damage and the shield to freeze, and either cooldown or range. You have a few options, just always go the freeze. Veil of Frost, a very strong dash, specifically only when you're going frost build. You have to have at least one more frost spell to combo this with. First, next primary attack within 3 seconds consumes chill and applies freeze, 2.3 to 4 seconds. You want this to be a high roll, it's the only effect that really matters for this dash, is very strong. Next primary attack within 3 seconds on enemy affected by chill or freeze, shields caster, 36 to 40 to 70%. We don't care, they are frozen, they cannot hit us, it does not matter, useless. Explosion. Illusion explodes in an AoE that deals 23 to 40% damage and applies chill. So it's pretty good, because more ways to get chill is always wanted in a frost build, so I'd take that. Increase elude duration, still useless. Increases damage 12 to 10% of the next primary attack within 3 seconds. Yeah, it's not great, it's not bad, so definitely freeze, that's what matters. And then illusion explosion, take that. And then increase damage, because it's the only option that does anything at all. But the only one that really matters is the freeze. Okay, now the illusion school. Mist Trance, pretty good spell, definitely up there in terms of viability. Trigger reduces secondary weapon skill cooldown 46 to 80%. This is the Q, by the way, not the. This is the Q, because the primary is your auto attacks. Might be a bit confusing. So definitely take this one though, because it's pretty good. Trigger grants Phantasm 1 to 4. This is an easy way to get a lot of Phantasm stacks, and Phantasm is an extremely good buff, so I would definitely consider that one. Trigger increases movement speed 13 to 21% for 3 seconds. Short duration movement speed buff, not like it's pretty big, but it's I wouldn't go for that. There's really good options with Mist Trance, so there's better ones. Trigger increases first primary attack damage 29 to 50% for 5 seconds. That's a lot of damage for a fairly long time. I definitely consider that. Trigger applies fear to enemies 1.3 to 2 seconds in a caster-centered AoE. Definitely take this every time. It is extremely powerful. It will instantly fear anyone attacking you in melee if you counter it. Very good. Trigger pushes enemies back. You fear them instead. That's much better. Teleport consumes weaken to grant a shield. It's not a big shield, and it has to consume weaken, so wouldn't care. Increased movement speed 22 to 35% during shadow. It's pretty good. It's always good for counters because you're less vulnerable if you have this, but still probably wouldn't go that. Increased distance traveled 10 to 20%. Nah, it's not bad. Probably wouldn't go it. So I would definitely take the fear, always, every time, no choice. And then this reducing cooldown on your primary, or your secondary, I mean your Q. That's pretty good. I would take that as a secondary. And then, yeah, movement speed is not bad. Probably I would take Phantasm, because Phantasm is really good. But movement speed and primary attack damage are both viable options. But what really matters is this cooldown reduction and the fear. Mosquito, very good spell now. First up, cast shields 56 to 90% for caster and allies. The problem with this is, it sounds good on paper, but the problem is if you want this, you have to cast the Mosquito on your caster, or on yourself, or on your allies. And you don't want to do that. You want to use this spell on your enemy, which means you'll never get the shield, so pretty bad. Explosion consumes weaken to reduce cooldown. Very unreliable. I wouldn't go that. Explosion summons 3 wisps that heal the caster and allies 23 to 40% when walked over. This is pretty good, because this will apply even if it doesn't hit anything, so you will get up to 120% healing, even if you don't hit an enemy. That is a lot of healing. I would definitely go this. Increased damage, 12 to 20%. It's a fairly low percentage. It's not bad, fairly low. And now we have increased fear duration, 0.4 to 0.7 seconds. I always take this. It's really good. Fear duration is really good. And then we have increased summon max HP and movement speed. This is extremely good. It makes it much easier for the Mosquito to hit the enemy and harder for them to kill it off. So always go this, summon HP and movement speed and fear duration. And I would definitely go the healing wisps as a third. So it's, yeah, go those 3 effects and you have a really good Mosquito. Phantom Aegis, pretty good spell. Recast to remove the effect and pull the target toward the caster. I have never seen anyone use this. I don't think it's very good. I wouldn't. Cast consumes weaken to reduce cooldown. Cooldown is good on defensive spells, but if we look on the one below, cast consumes weaken to apply fear, 1.3 to 1.6 seconds. Now, a bit of cooldown reduction, or you can fear all the enemies around you. Fear is much better. Always take the fear on this spell, always. Cast removes all negative effects. Cleanse is really good. This has a lot of potential as a supportive spell, very strong. Cast knocks enemies back 1.7 to 3 meters from target. So this will cancel barriers and counters, which is good, but you have the fear to do that kind of anyway. And there's good effects for this one, so probably it's not bad, it's good, but there's better ones. Expiration conjures a target-centered AoE that deals damage 29 to 50% and inflicts weaken. Sounds not too bad, honestly. Never seen this work. It's low duration, you can't really trigger it on your own, so it's unlikely to hit. So probably wouldn't go there. Increased duration 18 to 35%. Always really good on all shields. Always good. Increased movement speed 9 to 14%. Very good. Increased spell power 14 to 24%. I really like this effect. I really like it because it makes your spells just they hurt so much, and this scales so well with like Scholar Blood and then Winged Horror Shard and Witch Pot and legendaries. So I really like that. It's fun. And then if you have that and duration, you have a long-lasting buff. You could also go movement speed with the duration and such, but you always remember you always have to have fear, so you already lose that. And you might want to remove negative effects. And then duration, spell power, movement speed, there's a lot of things to consume, but what I like is duration, spell power, and fear. Again, fear, have to have. And then I like buffing myself, because you can get some Phantasm recast, so maybe you can get 2 Chaos Volleys with the recast, 24% more spell power. That is nasty. Spectral Wolf, really good support spell. First hit applies a fading snare, 1.1 to 1.8 seconds. It's a fairly long snare, and snare is a very strong debuff. So this becomes quite good. It consumes weaken to grant Phantasm. That is a lot of Phantasm stacks, and Phantasm is an extremely good spell, so this is definitely viable. It consumes weaken to grant a shield. Also viable. I would probably go the Phantasm, but definitely viable if you have a good way to apply weaken. Hit returns the projectile to the caster until last bounce to heal 63 to 80%. That's a lot of healing. I would always take this if I have this spell. It's every time. Increase max bounces by 1, since PvE wouldn't take it. Increase projectile range and speed. Very good, because this spell will bounce, and if for the next bounce to happen, it has to, hit the previous bounce. This makes all bounces more likely to hit, so I would take this almost every time. Decrease damage penalty per bounce, and it's more PvE, wouldn't care. So for me, I would go for the return bounce heal, and I think projectile range and speed. And then we can consume it to grant Phantasm or the snare, because snare, again, it's really strong to have a snare. Probably the snare, even though I like Phantasm, but doesn't matter so much. Just have the heal and maybe the projectile ranges. But the only thing that you have to have is the heal. Wraith Spear, another good spell that hasn't really seen all that much use. People have been experimenting with it, but haven't really found just a true use for this. Still good though. It consumes weaken to summon a wisp that heals the caster and allies 23 to 40% when walked over. The amount of conditions for this effect is actually ridiculous. First, they have to be weakened, and then you summon one wisp that heals allies when walked over. That's so hard to proc. Just don't take that. Hit consumes weaken to shield caster, 33 to 50% per target. Again, if you have a good way to apply weaken, maybe. But I probably wouldn't. This spell has a dash, so you'll probably be safe for the duration anyway. Hit grants allies a shield, 56 to 90%. That's pretty good. You only want to use this when you can hit an enemy. But if you can hit an enemy and an ally, then this is a lot of value. Hit applies a fading snare. Fading snares, all snares are fading. Snares are really good, so this is a good effect. Increased damage, total 25%. It's a lot of damage. I would always take that. Increased projectile range, 14 to 25%. Also good. It's already got insane range. With this, it's just gonna hit from across the map. Decreased damage penalty per hit. Seems more PvE to me. I wouldn't really take this. So personally, I would go definitely for the damage and then the snare and probably the grant allies a shield. But it doesn't matter so much. Definitely damage and snare though, for sure. Veil Evolution, a really good dash that has been driving me insane, both to play against sometimes, and mostly when playing it, because it will the stupid clone will always, without fail, every time proc counters, which is again is driving me insane because it's a free counter for the enemy, and I'm just buffing them by casting this. That's why I like it, but it's driving me insane. It's a very good sort of phantasm stacks and weaken debuff, however, which makes it very good with other illusion spells. Recast to explode the illusion. No. We want to use the recast to either teleport back or to... I'm not sure if this explodes instead of teleporting back, but if it's instead of teleporting back, then obviously we want to teleport back. If it explodes and then teleports back, that means if you want to hit it, you have to teleport back into the face of the enemy, and they will see you do this. That's a bad idea. This is never gonna end well. Don't do that. Don't take this. Illusion projectiles deal damage. This is extremely bad. It makes the spell worse. Because normally, okay, so it's going to do like 5 or 6 damage with this, which is nothing. It sucks. It's bad. But if it will also, this 5 or 6 damage, you think, oh, that's better than nothing, right? Except fears and incaps, yeah, they will be cancelled by that 5 or 6 damage, and you won't be able to combo the enemy properly anymore, and it will make you cry. Don't take this effect. Next primary attack, within 3 seconds, grant Phantasm Stacks. Phantasm Stacks, extremely good. I like this. I always take this effect on this dash. Next primary attack does damage. It's pretty good. I like that. Next primary attack does a snare. That's a long duration snare. Long duration snares are very good, so I would generally take this. Next primary attack consumes weaken to grant a shield. That's pretty good. Again, the dash is good at applying weaken, so it's pretty good. Elude duration again is useless. So I would go no, wait, never mind. Nope, not that one. I would go Phantasm. I would go maybe damage and snare, or with this weaken. Any combination of this 4 works. I would take Phantasm as the highest priority though. And now for the Storm School. Ball Lightning. It's an interesting spell that almost never sees use because it doesn't do that much damage and it's kind of hard to hit, and something like Void is just better. Recast detonates the ball to deal damage from 9 to 50%. This is good because it's a decent chunk of damage and you get to choose when it happens. And it's especially good combined with this. Explosion consumes static to apply stun. So what you do is you hit them, and that applies static, and then you recast with this jewel, and then you use this jewel to stun them, and you get almost an instant stun. That's pretty good. Explosion pushes enemies back, but they are stunned, we don't care. Explosion increases caster and ally movement speed for 4 seconds, but we are using it on the enemy, not on allies, so I would not go that. Increased tick damage, 3 to 6%. This is only ever useful if they stand in it, which they won't, unless they are, for example, Spear Q comboed by your teammate or something, in which case this could give some value. Increased projectile range, 14 to 25%. That's a lot of range. Maybe go that. Definitely go these 2 every time. And then I think probably the projectile range, maybe the tick damage, it doesn't matter as much, but these 2, go for those. Cyclone, pretty bad spell, unfortunately. Hit consumes static to apply stun. Thing with Cyclone is you can't really control when it hits, so you can't do anything with the stun generally, so it's not great. Hit consumes static for the next 3 primary attacks within 6 seconds to deal damage and apply static. Generally a very strong buff to auto attacks, but I wouldn't go it for this spell because it's so unreliable. Increases damage 12 to 20%. Yeah, sure, go for it. There's not a lot of effects. I would go with this one. Increased projectile range and speed. So this is interesting for this spell because that means it's going to, circle faster, which is more likely to hit, which means a lot more value. Increased projectile duration, 12 to 25%. Again, it's much more likely to hit, and in combination with projectile range and speed, I don't know what's up with range. I don't think this has a range limit, so that's weird. But yeah, combine these 2 and it's much more likely to hit, and then combine that with more damage. So all of those 3 effects is what I would go for sure. Discharge, very good spell. Again, it's one of the spells that's driving me insane when I'm using Veil of Illusion because of this first effect that you always have to take. Trigger to travel a second time after first travel. Extremely good. Just always take this every time. It makes you you're invulnerable for like 2 seconds, 3 seconds if someone hits it, and you're also dashing right up into their face or away from them if you wanna. And then if you hit them, they get tornadoed for 3 seconds. You can stall out a fight for 5 years with this spell. It's so strong. Passing through an enemy consumes static and makes your next primary attacks do more damage. Again, it's like they are tornadoed. You can't really auto attack them, so that's that's not great. Increases damage 12 to 20%. Just straight up better than the one above. Increased movement speed during channel time. Always nice for counters, so yeah. Increase airborne duration. If you really want to just CC them forever and reset the fight, sure, but the thing is, this fucks up with your timing because you want to land Axie as soon as the tornado is over. You have to have the timing is tight, you have to really time it well. And if you have this, you will fuck up your timing. If you want to see an example of this, you can watch my guide video on like a few top builds, because I'm using Discharge, I'm using this spell on both my Ice Block and Discharge build and my Zip-Zap build. So there's some examples. So for this one, always second travel time, then damage and movement speed during channel. That's what you want. Lightning Curtain, another extremely good spell, especially in open world. Hit applies a fading snare. So this is an instant snare wherever you want it. That can really fuck with an enemy. It's very good. Hit on a caster or ally grants a shield. This is extremely good. You don't have to hit the spell on them. It applies whenever they pass through the barrier for the first time, which is very strong, because you can first have like 3 seconds of block all projectiles, and then you can move through and have another 3 seconds of a fairly big shield, which makes it very difficult for the enemy to hit you and do anything. Hit, consume static, and apply stun. See, this doesn't work with the static applied by the curtain itself, so you have to, if they are already static, you can use this for boom, range stun. It's pretty good, but you can't just do it on a non-static target, so I think the snare probably wins out of this one, but it's not bad. This one is very good. Block projectiles, 3 max. For the next 3 primary attacks within 6 seconds to deal 23 to 40% damage and apply static. So, instead of having to consume static to get this effect, any projectile blocked, like an Axie, will be 2 projectiles blocked, will do more damage. So if they Axie your barrier, you now do 80% more damage to them on your next auto attack. That's a lot of damage. This spell, this effect is extremely good. Always take that. Increases tick damage 5 to 12%. If they stand in your curtain, they are retarded. They probably won't be standing in your curtain. Maybe if you have the snare, but no. Increased movement speed for yourself when you pass through the curtain, or for your allies when they pass through the curtain. Very good, for sure. I would go the shield and the block projectiles every single time. And then I'd probably go the movement speed, because I like that, but you could go the snare as well, or even the stun. But definitely shield and block projectiles. Polarity Shift, fun spell. You've seen me use it in my Zip-Zap build. It doesn't have a lot of dual effects though. So, hit conjures an AoE at the target's location that does damage and applies snare. I think these are actually apply static. I think these are not entirely like correct here, but one of them, effectively, when you hit shift, it will conjure an explosion on your location immediately. Wait, no, it will conjure an explosion on their location immediately, which is bad because they will already be in the shift and invulnerable, and they won't ever be hit by that. And the second one will conjure an explosion on your location after you finish traveling through the shift, which again, they will be shifted to wherever you were before, and it probably won't hit them, but if you're standing close enough, it will actually hit them. So in melee range, this is 50% more damage, so I go this because the other effects are pretty bad. Hit consume static for the next 3 primary attacks to deal more damage. Static is a very good debuff, so you want to be careful about consuming it, because having it up for your next spear Q or maybe Reaper is big and matters a lot. So this, I wouldn't really go that here. Hit applies a fading snare, 0.8 to 1.5 seconds. Always take this. Snares are very good. It allows you to follow up your shift with an immediate spell while they're still disoriented from being shifted. Increase projectile range and speed, 10 to 24%, makes the spell even faster, even longer range. I always go this. These 2 effects every time, and then I also take the whole the explosion when you reach your location after shift. Veil of Storm, very good dash, one of the better ones for sure. The attack speed buff is very good, and it always applies static when you dash for an enemy, which static is probably the best debuff in the game right now, I think. Because the combination with Spear Q and Reaper E is very strong. Illusion conjures an AoE that does tick damage and applies static. Not a lot of damage, but it's another way to apply static, which, again, very good. And they might walk into this on their own because they know it doesn't do much damage. It happens pretty frequently, but it can be comboed, so it's actually pretty scary. Next primary attack does more damage. Always good. Next primary attack, consume static to apply stun. Very good, because as I just said, you will apply static when you dash through them, and then you auto attack them to consume that static and stun. And then if you really comboing, then they will stand in this AoE, get staticked, and you spear Q them for a static spear Q out of a stun. Very strong. Next primary attack applies a fading snare. This is a long duration snare, so it's actually very strong. But if you can, you always want to stun them instead, which kinda is better. But so I would go definitely this one for stun always. This is what matters. You want to have a good roll on the stun, and then this rolls on this one doesn't matter because it's mostly for the static. And then either the snare or the damage doesn't really matter so much. Now for the Unholy School. Bone Explosion. Hit on an enemy affected by Condemn applies agony. I mean, sure, go for it if you want. Hit on an enemy under 30% max HP deals damage. Lethal attacks reduce cooldown. Lethal attacks reduce cooldown, again, good in PvE, doesn't really matter otherwise. Making extra damage against low HP targets is it's not bad. Explosion conjures 8 projectiles that deals damage and apply Condemn. I've never actually seen that, so I can't speak about it, but I would guess it's not great. Explosion conjures an AoE that deals damage and applies Condemn. So this is a second explosion, small at the center. It could be good if you do a combo with you slash your E someone and then you spear Q, then you cast this Bone Explosion and then you cast spear Q, so that they will be hit by both explosions in the spear Q. This will do a lot of damage, so that's pretty good. Explosions heal ally skeletons and reset drop time. I mean, if you're going for a summon, sure, but this seems very PvE to me. Explosion applies a fading snare. This is pretty good because snares are good, like I've said. Increased damage, always good. Damage is good. We like damage. Increased range, yeah, maybe sometimes. Probably wouldn't. Decreased cooldown, always good. So for this one, I would go maybe the recast explosion and then maybe snare and damage. With range, cooldown, also good effects. Corrupted Skull. It's a pretty bad spell nowadays. Haven't seen anyone really use it. Launch 2 projectiles instead of 1 that deals 26 to 40% damage and apply Condemn. This just kind of makes it worse, which is pretty sad. Hit on an ally skeleton causes it to explode and an AoE that deals damage and applies Condemn. Well, sure, PvE seems pretty good, but no one in PvP is gonna stand next to a skeleton anyway. Hit on an enemy affected by Condemn and applies agony. Yeah, I mean, if you like agony, sure. Hit on an enemy affected, and this doesn't seem to consume the Condemn, or it's worded improperly here. I'm not sure. Hit on an enemy affected by Condemn applies Bane. Very PvE, don't take that. Recasts pushes enemies back. Huh? What does that mean? I don't know about that one. Seems like might be actually for the Ward of the Damned down here. I think that might have been, might be in the wrong section. That doesn't make sense. Hit conjures a projectile that circles around the enemy that deals 9 to 15% damage and applies Condemn. This could get pretty confusing. I mean, sure, but it's not gonna hit them, so it's not very good. Increased damage, always good. We like that. Increased projectile range and speed, like that too. So damage, projectile range and speed, and then well, I don't really know. The third one doesn't matter so much. It's still a bad spell. Death Knight, however, that is a very good spell. Cast applies a fading snare. This is very good. You want to take that every time. Hit on enemy affected by Condemn applies agony. Again, just not great because you have to apply Condemn, which isn't easy at all. And applying Bane is PvE, doesn't matter. Hit summons a skeleton mage with increased damage. This is really good. Take this every time. This also has a nice bonus of countering Ice Block because you'll always get a skeleton mage, and the skeleton mage does like 40-50 damage per hit. It's a lot of damage. Increased damage. That's a big percentage, 70-30%. That's a lot of damage. That's really good. Should probably take that. Increased damage to enemies below 30% max HP. Again, that's really good. I think the general damage kind of wins out, but of course you could take both, but then you lose out on the snare, which is a really good effect because it's almost guaranteed to land snare with the way it works. And so you want Skeleton Mage for sure, and then probably Snare, and then either of these two damage effects would work. But you could also go both damage effects and then Skeleton Mage, or maybe even Snare. The Skeleton Mage is OP though, so you should probably take that. Soulburn, yet another top 2 spell. This and Ice Block is to stand out of all the rest, that's completely overpowered. Cast removes all negative effects from caster. Definitely pretty good. I generally wouldn't, I think, but pretty good. Cast consume skeletons, you don't have skeletons. Cast consume skeletons, you don't have skeletons, doesn't matter. affected by Condemned applies Agony. I mean, not too bad. Increased targets hit, that's never gonna happen in PvP, not ever. Increased silence duration, really good. Take this every single time. Increased damage and increased life drain, both of them solid. Decreased cooldown for each enemy affected by silence. Again, it's basically just a low percentage cooldown refund, like a cooldown reduction, so that's pretty good. So yeah, these three effects, all of them, damage, life drain, cooldown reduction, pretty good. Just pair any of those with the silence duration and you have a very strong spell. Ward of the Damned. Well, never seen anyone use it, but I see here they can summon skeleton mages. It's a fairly low percentage chance, but skeleton mages are incredibly strong. I wouldn't take this over Frost Barrier or Chaos Barrier, however. Those are better. Barrier hit melee deals damage to the attacker. So it's just deal damage, sure. It's not too bad, but again, it's melee, so you could... the Chaos Barrier just stuns them, that's just better. Barrier hit projectile heals. Oh, so if you get hit by melee, you deal damage to them, and if you get hit by a projectile, you can heal. You know what? That's actually not bad. In PvE, I can see this being god tier, but in PvP, you could get some value, but there's better ones. And here we have Recast pushes enemies back, which again, like, that's good because it can cancel barriers and counters, which is pretty good. Or it should be able to, might not actually. Increase ally skeleton damage. Again, the skeletons, they don't do shit in PvP. You don't. Recast shields allied skeletons. Why would you shield them? They are useless. Increase recast damage. That's not a lot. Increased movement speed during channel. It's not too bad. So for this one, definitely barrier hit, projectile, and melee to have effects for sure. And I'd also take the skeleton mage chance. Those three seem like the best for sure. Veil of Bones. I haven't seen anyone use this dash, but it shouldn't be too bad. Dashing for an enemy applies Condemned. Good, because dashing, like, that's an easy way to apply a Condemned, which you can use to consume it in whatever way. Dashing for an ally skeleton heals them and resists drop time. You know what? Actually, on this one, because this is easy to use, and you can, if you have a skeleton mage from either Death Knight or maybe even Ward of the Damned, which you probably shouldn't use, then this can make both. It can give you more skeleton mage uptime, which is actually quite valuable. Still, burning a full dash cooldown just for some more skeleton mage uptime, probably not worth it. Next primary attack within 3 seconds on an enemy affected by Condemned applies Agony. Agony is, again, this maybe not the best, but not bad, and it means you can apply Condemned and then dash through. And it, again, this doesn't say consume here, which might be just the spreadsheet, but might not be. And if they're both Condemned and in Agony, then this is pretty good on the dash. And Bane, again, that's PE. Next primary attack deals more damage. It's not too bad. I would take the Condemned applies Agony instead, because that's a lot more damage since you can dash through them. Next primary attack within 3 seconds, the enemy is below 30% max HP, deals more damage. That seems just lose out hard to this one. And the loot duration is still bad. So for this one, dashing through Condemned, and then Agony, and yeah, more damage on next primary attack. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe for more, and let me know in the comments below what topic you'd like me to cover next.